to stay in the TT position as much as possible. Edinburgh! Woo! This is amazing! So I've just finished my last exam, officially unemployed. Now it's time to do the North Race.
The North Race is a rolling event held by Restrap. The only rules are you have to start in Leeds at their HQ and try to see how far you can cycle in 24 hours unsupported. The person who beats the record gets a £500 voucher to spend at Restrap. As it stands, the current record is currently 609 kilometres.
Let's go! Getting the preparation underway. Here's the suit that I'll hopefully be wearing. It is an old Pro Team suit, which is lovely and aero, but we'll see how comfortable it is. Just going out for a ride, testing out the skin suit and the saddle in a bit of a longer ride. So far, the saddle's really comfy, especially in the TT position. It makes me gravitate towards the nose of the saddle, which is really good for sort of opening up my hips. But I feel like after a while my knees might start to hurt because of it. We'll see how it goes. So far, skin suit, so comfy. I mean, it's a bit tight, but it's lovely.
For this event, I need to be in a TT position as much as possible, as this can increase my efficiency massively, sometimes up to 20%. Over 24 hours, that can make a huge difference. And so going into this event, I need to spend a lot of time in a TT position to sort of practice.
So far, saddles, it's interesting. It's definitely more comfy when I'm in the tri-bars, but after a while, either side of my groin starts to hurt because I'm just not used to the saddle yet. So I'm hopeful that by Monday I'll sort of get used to it. If not, just gotta stick with it. I think it'll be the best decision versus if I use my other saddle, which I'm a bit more comfortable with, but I just won't be in aero position as much. So I'll try and make it work. So far, our ride's going pretty rough. I'm feeling quite ill. So yeah, it is coming along. But yeah, other than that, still grinding. Oh, and the skin suit is really good. Super comfy. But again, in the same position that my saddle's sort of hurting, the suit is sort of clumping up, so now and again just sort of need to readjust. Other than that, feel absolutely rapid. I think it's gonna really help me in the race. Just got back from the ride. It was kind of tough. Just feeling a bit ill, so wasn't the best. In terms of the gear, skin suit looks good. Looks good, feels good, and it's definitely faster. I feel like when I'm up to speed, I can just carry a lot more speed. The saddle, I think I'm gonna have to make a couple of more adjustments, just sort of like adjusting the seat height, moving it back and forth a bit more, just get a bit more comfortable. But the tri-bars are starting to really be comfortable, and a good sort of option. But yeah, other than that, successful day. A big part of this challenge is trying to get the weather right for it. So ideally, I want a wind coming from southern to northern direction. But if that doesn't occur, I kind of want the wind speeds to be quite low. Obviously, if I'm getting a crosswind or a headwind, I want to minimise that sort of effect. But also, if I do have a tailwind, I also don't want it to be vigorous, because when winds are super speedy, you sort of get hit around quite a lot. Although the idea of carrying 30k an hour from just winds is lovely, kind
kind of needs to be a bit cautious of that. Just trying to pick a day where the wind is sort of just right. It's pretty challenging to do so, especially I've got to sort of plan it about a week ahead. So it is more of a gamble than anything else, but all part of the fun. So the weather's finally in. So it's somewhat reliable this close. But what we're looking at is basically Thursday has a really nice tailwind from south to north, pretty much all the way. But the problem is, it's going to be raining. And not just some showers, it's somewhat heavy rain. However, on Friday, there's still a tailwind for 80-90% of the ride, but there's less rain. But the problem is, I could set off on Thursday really early, like 2 o'clock in the morning, and then I would miss the rain, because the rain gets in about 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock. So I'd miss the rain for about half the ride, but get the massive benefit of the tailwind. But then the next 12 hours would be miserable. Just raining, it would be quite cold. So I kind of need to have a little think about what I'm going to do. Because even Friday, even though there is a tiny bit of rain on Friday, it's going to be 16, 17 degrees, whereas on Thursday it's going to max out at about 12, 13 degrees. So it's really going to play a toll if I choose one or the other. But it's all exciting stuff. It's starting to get really close now. It's currently Monday, and so I need to start carb loading. Sadly, did have an illness come through about Friday, but after a couple of days of doing very little, feeling a lot better. Hopefully by Thursday or even Friday, I'll be 100%. If not, I'm still going to do it. So just booked the room, so staying in Leeds, about 16-minute cycle from where I need to be, and just booked the train, so now it's time to pack. It's currently Monday, about 3 o'clock in the afternoon, so about 2 days away until I need to leave. So packed out everything, and I'll take you through it. So this is the bags that I'm going to be using. I've also got a top bag. As I was saying, I've got a top tube bag. I've got a saddle bag, which is quite big, not massive, sort of roomy enough. And then I've got a frame bag, which is quite big, fills up most of my frame sort of space with my water bottles in as well. And then I've got my hydration vest, which is quite roomy. It's also got a little space for a bladder, which I'll get onto later, as well as some front bladder bottles. So this is mainly where most of my food is going to be, just for ease of access, really. So these are my main bags. Moving on to my food that I'm starting with. So for the race, I'm going to do a mixture of solid food as well as liquid food. So this is a carb drink. It's really good, really works well with me, but I'm basically going to have 90 grams of carbs in each bottle that I have, well, each 800 mils that I have, and that will keep me topped up. So I'll only be having about one bottle every 2 hours, so give me about 45 grams of carbs each hour, and then the rest will be through sort of solid food. These little things are caffeine gummies, so they're I think
80 or 100 milligram caffeine gummies just to give me a boost during the night and the sort of final push. I've also got some gels, just some high five gels, just in case I need it. Moving on to the water. So I've got 2 800ml water bottles, 2 soft flasks, now 500ml each, and then a big 2 litre water bladder, which hopefully won't break. Moving back to sort of the medical stuff. So I've got these are just some wipes. As you can probably tell, I'm a bit nasally. I'm still recovering from the cold. So yeah, these are some wipes just to sort of clean myself. If I don't know, get muddy, somehow fall off, I need to be able to clean it. This is some chamois cream, just to keep everything feeling nice. Got my asthma pump, which will definitely be needed. And then I've got some electrolyte powder and the spoon in there. And then just some ibuprofen, a hand warmer. I've also got another one. And then that's pretty much it for health stuff. Mechanical stuff, just bits and bobs really. I won't take you through everything. It's all very self-explanatory. Apart from this, so this is core remover. Just tighten up my core because sometimes my valve gets quite loose, and I didn't really want that to be leaking. So just in case. And then if I do get a flat or just need to pump up, I've got these, which I basically just need to go into a petrol station, and then I can put it to whatever PSI I need, which are really handy. Moving on to electronics. So for this, I've got 2 front lights, 2 back lights. The back light's still coming today, as well as 2 battery packs. Might be a bit overkill, but I'd rather have a bit more charge than needed, just in case. Moving on to the exciting part of the clothing. So I've got this, which is a Pro Teams skin suit that went bust, and I know a mechanic that was in the team and bought it off him. And then we've also got some aero socks from Decathlon, having the Van Rysel, which hopefully these 2 sort of combinations will be really lovely and save me quite a few watts, get me going fast. I've also got leg warmers when it gets cold, some nice gloves, ski socks. I've got a pair of sunnies, a pair of clears, 2 thermal t-shirts, and then a big quarter zip sort of.
So feeling a lot better today. Actually feeling alive. Although I'm a bit chesty on the bike still, but all adds to the challenge. Bike's all ready. So this is the setup with all the bags on. So I'm going to have a hydration vest as well, but this is the main setup. Just up the sealant. This back tyre, for some reason I got a puncture yesterday, and so it was running low on sealant, so I've just stopped that one up as well as the front one up, and yeah, ready to rumble. So lights I've got this backlight, which came today, and then I've got this shitty light. This light is really good because I can constantly charge it whilst also having it on, whereas the other one is a bit more powerful, but can't do that. So it's the night before the race, absolutely buzzing but shitting myself. So it's going to be like 7 degrees when I start, hopefully around like 4 or 5ish.
So I'm going to wear a thermal, my winter gloves, as well as my skin suit, and see how I do with that. I might need to put something else on, because that would be quite cold, and I don't really want to start off being too cold. But yeah, journey went well. This is the Airbnb. Very nice. Also comes with some Mavic wheels, and then some Hunt wheels. I'm staying with a ex-pro cyclist, so really nice there. Got very lucky. Bike is here. Bike's looking ready. Had 2 bunches coming to the train station in Cardiff. Hopefully they stay as they are and holding up. I've definitely got enough pressure in there, so that's all good. I've got all of my carb powder in my water now. It's going to be hard to be really quick when I've got to put the water bladder in the back of my hydration pack, as it's quite fiddly. But another challenge. So yeah, it's going to be good fun. See you tomorrow. At the Restrap factory, bike's ready, I'm ready, let's go! Let's go!
So about just coming up to 2 hours in, going good, but heart rate is way too high than I want it to be. I think I'm thinking too much about what's ahead and pushing a bit much, so I need to just chill out. I know I can get far, I just need to trust myself, and I'll be good. I try and stay in the TT position as much as possible. Feeling super aero. Feet are cold. It's quite early still. Was it 6 o'clock? So feet are going to be cold for a bit, but I can deal with that for the aero gains. But yeah, cruising.
Fuel was going well, and before I knew it, I was 150k in and going over the Yorkshire Dales, some of the best scenery in the UK. At the start, I was aiming to hold 190 watts on the flats and 240 on the hills. However, due to illness, I had to lower the wattage to keep my heart rate somewhat reasonable.
Woo! So about, exactly 175k in. Heart rate is very too high. Sort of like 145. I'm only doing like 170 watts, sort of average. So gonna have to sort of swallow my ego and just reduce my wattage a bit, and hope that it helps me in the later stages of the race, so I can just power through over the hills. So yeah, currently in line with Newcastle. It's been lovely roads. I'll show you the stats. That's what the stats are looking like, and this is what the roads are looking like. Woo! We made it.
For this ride, I'm planning to stop twice. Once just past Newcastle, about 8 or 9 hours in, and then once in Pitlockery, about 440 kilometres in.
Just shammied up, looked at the pace. If I keep exactly what I've done when I get to 300k, so I've got about an hour, I've got 25k until 300k, the mark, and I've got an hour to do that, which should be fine. So as long as I do exactly what I've done previously over the last 300k, I should be in the fucking running. Let's fucking go. It just needs to minimize stops. Starting to feel quite drowsy and almost bonking, which is not a good sign. So I chucked some carbs down. Although when I got into the train station, the petrol station, the first thing I saw was a Scotch pie, and I've not had a Scotch pie in years. So I immediately went for that, and I feel like my digestive system will not like me for that. But it was a good Scotch pie. I mean, it was pretty shit, but it was alright. It was worth it. So yeah, we just need to keep going, keep pushing. Legs are looking beefy. Woo! Let's go!
As I got into Edinburgh, it started to rain, and this is where stuff kind of went wrong. I was pretty happy with just my skin suit and a thermal top underneath, but I took a moment to look down at my tyres as they were making a noise, and I looked down for a couple of seconds, and before I knew it, I was tumbling through the air. I'd basically hit a speed bump going 30 kilometers an hour and just got thrown off the bike. Luckily, nothing was broken other than my ego and my camera. I've got a few scratches and sort of a bruised hip, but I just needed to sort of gather my thoughts. Whilst I was doing so, I got really cold because it was raining quite bad and got a bit cold. So I chucked all of my layers on and just got back on the bike and started moving again. As I did so, I was just really cold going over the bridge. It was really hard and possibly one of the hardest times on the bike. Sort of shivering with adrenaline, but also freezing. It was not a nice time, and I was having some doubts, which weren't great. But nonetheless, I put my head down and I started to head for Perth. The kilometres ticked by and I got to Perth. As I was going through, my dad was there, so he waved me across and shouted some support whilst I went past. But when I got through Perth, I saw a load of open petrol stations, and at this point I was quite broken. I kind of wanted to have a little stop, although I'd planned to stop about an hour or 2 hours later. But I rolled past these petrol stations and thought, no, I'll stick to my plan. I'll stop in Pitlochry, and everything will be fine. However, when I got to Pitlochry an hour or two later, the place that I was planning to stop at, a little premiere, was shut, and everywhere else between me and Inverness was shut. The only option was either to push on to Inverness, or however far I got, or to double back probably 20 kilometres and go to a petrol station. I didn't want to go back on myself. Looking back, I'm not sure even going back on myself would have been a good idea, but nonetheless, I pushed on through the A9 and I went into the Highlands. As it got darker and darker, I started to slow down even more, and that there's a big incline from Pitlochry that goes up for about 20 kilometres, and it felt like a really big slog. And at this point I had my rain cape on, all of my layers on, so I wasn't very aero, let's put it that way. So I was going very slowly uphill, and it felt just never ending. I'd run out of food other than my carb powder in my bottles, but my stomach would not stomach any more carb powder in bottles. It was looking for some solid food. And so I started chomping down on my caffeine gummies, not for the caffeine, but just for solid food, that feeling of solid food. So I ate all of those, and that did me some good in some sense. But nonetheless, we kept on pushing, and I kept on looking at the pace as it got slower and slower, and doubt started to set in, and I came to the realization I probably wasn't even going to get to Inverness, let alone beat the record. So I kept on pushing through. The hours started ticking by. I got to a point where I couldn't really be in the TT position for too long because my back was aching, partly because of how long I've been in that TT position, but also from the crash. Where I landed was basically on my spine and my shoulder. Kind of bounced along once on my shoulder, once on my back, and so those took a hit. So being in the TT position really hurt, so I couldn't do that, and my legs started to hurt, as they would 20 hours into a ride. So I got to a point where the only thing that I could sustain was if I did a little effort, say 5-10 seconds, and then I almost stood up sort of parallel with my legs straight, and sort of glided through, and I'd do that over and over again. Not sure if that was efficient, but it felt like the only thing I could do. But the kilometres ticked by, and I went through the A9 with lorries going past, and finally we got to Aviemore, and again the place where I was hoping to get some food was shut. And what basically happened in both Pitlochry and Aviemore was, on Google Maps, when you're looking at places that are open now, you can put a filter for open at certain times, and if they don't have their opening times on Google, then they automatically show as always open 24 hours. And so I made the mistake of not checking their open times, which is something I should have learnt before. I've done a couple of these things before, and I've always checked when they were open, but a little mistake caused a big problem. Now, in the end, I got to 530 kilometres in the 24 hours, and it was it was the hardest thing I've ever done. Just looking forward to the next adventure.